All right, so welcome to Debatable Podcast. We are back after the longest hiatus ever. I mean, this podcast is basically the Game of Thrones of the athletic training podcast. We're here to discuss hot topics in athletic training. I'm your host, Victoria Morris, for the second season, and we're here to talk all things athletic training, those hot takes, those topics, those ideas, all those conversations that really have us going, are you kidding me? Are you serious? For those of you turning in for the very first time, make sure that you're following us on Twitter. That's at debatable_show2. I had to make a new account. And then also follow my personal Twitter at Morris_ATC. Don't forget to participate in any discussions, polls, questions, challenges, fun little adventures that I post each week. You could even be featured on our next show. And for many of you that are listening, that have listened before, you're probably wondering where we've been for the last 3 years, but it's pretty simple. I was working with the Army with H2F, and I was under super strict media rules from my contracting company and from the Army. But as many of us know, those AT positions within H2F have been cut. Doing another episode on that later. And I've taken a new job with the local school district. So I'm back. Now that we're back, I hope this episode can bring another fun, maybe even engaging show. We're joined by a good friend of mine, Dr. Ben Snyder from New Mexico State University. He's a clinical coordinator and assistant professor for the Masters of Athletic Training program. He is also our Sun City Athletic Trainers Association president. So those of you in El Paso and the surrounding areas, this is your president of SCATA. Anything you want to say? Introduce yourself, Ben?
I think you nailed it. Just living the dream up at MSATs.
Hey, I'm excited to be a preceptor for you guys soon. I can't wait. It's something I've always wanted to do. I'm bringing my game, so we're going to play Cards Against Athletic Trainers. All those students better be ready for these unhinged card combos I'm about to make.
I gave Kim, our program director, I gave her the heads up, so we're ready for that. We're waiting to see what at least our second years are going to do.
But that is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait. I was so excited when I got that game. I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So, speaking of unhinged athletic training stuff, our first segment we're going to do today is our this or that. So the only rule with this segment is you have to choose one or the other. You can't be like, oh, well, it depends, or in this situation, or if I had this, I would do this. You have to choose one or the other, okay? And then you can go on rant if you want about why you would choose it or why you hate the other one or whatever. But that's it. Like, I had a lot of people that are always like, well, it depends on if I was... No. Which one, right now, if you had to do either one of these, which one would you rather do? So, our this or that this week is, would you rather chase down a stubborn athlete who refuses to get treatment like it's the NFL Combine, or explain what an athletic trainer actually does to 10 random people, but they all think you're a personal trainer? Which of those would you rather do?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would have to say I would chase down the stubborn athlete because I'm tired of talking to random people anyway about what an AT is. Especially when they hear the word athletic, they're like, so you do weights and stuff. So yeah, I would rather go chase that kid down. I think that's a much easier battle or fight for myself and for my sanity versus trying to track down 10 people and then get them to see a different side of things.
And to actually, like, listen to that spiel. I know, I agree with you. I'm chasing down that athlete, like, let me go find you, let me get you in, or tell coach you didn't come in, because telling 10 people that already have the mindset of, oh, you're a personal trainer, oh, you're a strength and conditioning coach, and then you're like, no, I'm this, and that whatever it is, I'm like the physical therapist that runs out onto the field, you know, and I'm just like, they don't care. Like, NATA is like, get the 30-second spiel that you would say in an elevator. These people don't care. Like, they already have it preconceived, and then I gotta tell 10 people that repeatedly? Like, no, I already do that as it is every time I work a PRN event.
Oh, for sure. I can't tell you how many times I've had to be like, oh, I'm the healthcare provider here when I do my PRN stuff with rugby. Oh, are you the strength coach? No. If you need to call me something different, you can call me the medic, because that seems to be their term that they like.
Oh my God, Army.
Okay, that makes sense.
Me and the Army, like, oh my gosh, it was either coach, because we had strength coaches, and they went by like Coach Luke, Coach Matt, you know, whoever it was, or it was medic Tori, and I'm like, I'm not a medic. First of all, I'm not in the Army, so I'm not a medic. Number two, like, I'm an athletic trainer. I can do other things. But no, that's what they said. But yet they never called me for like medic stuff. Like when they'd have somebody that is taking their ACFT, their PT test, they roll their ankle. Did they call me? No, they called an actual medic, and the medic's like, no, call Tori. She's the one who deals with this. And then I'm like, okay, but yet you call me medic, but you don't really realize what my job is. But I feel like you with SCATA, you probably already have to do that a lot as it is, telling people like, this is my job, this is what SCATA is, this is what an athletic trainer is. Like, I feel like you already have to do that. Anyways.
Yeah, that and with my other job, with my clinical coordinator job, yes, it's getting stakeholders to buy into what it is. So, yeah, since I do it already, wouldn't rather go do it in my free time or chase anybody down and say, hey, have you heard the good news? This is what an AT is.
So that email that I had to send out. So for those of you listening, I am the PR rep for SCATA. So I do all of the Twitter, the Instagrams, the pictures, the Facebooks, the graphics, like anything that's internet involved or public relations or pushing stuff out, that's me, right? And so I had to send emails to people to try to invite them to that workshop that we're doing for heat illness. And the fire chief actually knew what an athletic trainer was, but I think that's because Lori's husband was in the fire department and they knew each other. So I think that's how he knew. But when I reached out to Texas Tech for their emergency ER, like residency people, she was like, "What's an athletic trainer? I don't understand how this applies to us." And I was like, "Okay, first off, this is what an athletic trainer is. This is why ER
Mm-hmm.
docs need to know about heat illness because it's El Paso and it's currently 107 degrees outside." And then I was like, "And then this is why it's also important because it's sports, and you guys need to know how to deal with this because you don't, right?" Those emails were, oh my gosh. I just started deleting them. I was like, never mind, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So just to track down 10 people and have to come up with that elevator speech. This is what an athletic trainer is. No, not give me the athlete. Let me go run 100 yards. Let me even go run for a soccer player that's cramping. Like I would rather do that than tell people what my job is.
Those who know me, I would rather go find a middle school person because they know me and middle school athletes do not mix. So, yeah, I think I would rather do that as well.
You are a much better person than me, not middle school athletes. Okay, so now we're going to move on from a fun topic. Not that this isn't fun, but to more of our little educational moments so that everybody listening on TikTok Live, on YouTube, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, we get a little education out of it. So we're going to talk about the MSAT, so the Masters of Science in Athletic Training enrollment for 2024. So this came out in 2025, but it went for the 2024-25 school year. So you've read it, right? I mean, I know I sent it to you. You were going to use it for NMSU. What did you get out of it? Like, how are you going to use it for NMSU, or what is your goal?
Yeah, so really looking at it, I feel the data is kind of skewed a little bit because we look at a lot of these MSAT programs that are around the country and they're still in their infancy. You know, with the change that happened in 22 when you were no longer allowed to enroll kids in undergrad programs, and then you saw the closures of some other programs across the country. It was some of the data was promising, but at other times I feel like you could skew that just a little bit, just because of there's not enough years to get as many of these programs, especially when you start coming out west. We look at the East Coast programs; they've been around forever,
Right, right.
and but so yeah, as you start coming out west, I feel like those numbers may not be truly indicative of what the area actually is showing.
That and like one thing I feel like, especially our area, right? And we'll talk about it more when we get to the SCATA section, but like we don't have a lot of colleges to pull kids from. I mean, we have colleges, right? But in the Texas area, you can go get your undergrad and then go get your master's, and a lot of those schools keep them in house. Texas Tech, Texas A&M, UT Austin, they keep them in house. I know that's what you guys are trying to do from NMSU, but you're not a 3-2 program yet. So you're having to pull from other programs, and there's not a lot here. I mean, the closest one besides you guys is Albuquerque, Lubbock. I mean, I guess Permian Basin. But there's
Yeah,
not
I would say
many.
Permian's not even there anymore. Like their program is no longer. The main three that we focus is NAU, so the Flagstaff Phoenix campuses,
Okay, yeah.
Tech in Lubbock, and then UNM in Albuquerque. So those would be the three closest programs. And like when we look at our kids that are applying, those are usually the three other schools that they're looking at as well.
Right. I mean, I know even when I was on the East Texas side, like most of my kids that wanted to do athletic training, they already had their schools picked out. Like they're like, oh, I'm not going to go to New Mexico. I mean, in our case, New Mexico is far, but they weren't going to go there. Whereas those ones that are up there in New York, Connecticut, like you can go 5 states away and it's 3-4 hours away. Whereas here,
Yeah.
we both know how far of a drive like Dallas is for us or Phoenix is for us. It's 9-10 hours away. sometimes kids don't want to do that. And we in MSU, not top, no offense, not top tier like university. Some people on listening right now probably don't even know what I mean when I say, New Mexico State University. They're like Aggies, that's A.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
another thing, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, it's when you look at like our area, like coming back to this, data, there's not a lot around here, and kids aren't going to, from what I've noticed anyway, aren't going to travel, 8, 9, 10 hours away and then stay there for whether it be 4 years, 5 years, or even 6 years, depending on the route that they go.
Right, right. I know. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. Up until recently, I was not a fan of MSATs. Again, I have kind of a little biased opinion because I went to UTA the same year they started their MSAT program, so their first graduating class graduated with me. So it kind of, to me, kind of messed up my undergrad experience because I went from being a level 2 in a 4-year program to doing the work of a master's student because we were in the same classes together without, getting a master's. So for a long time, I didn't really like the master's program. I didn't understand why we needed it. I didn't see like the benefit from it. Again, we're Texas, so we didn't even really see the benefit of BOC.
Yeah.
But have you noticed like an uptick in the number of people sitting for the exam in 2025, or do you really think it's been the same? So do you think the number of people sitting for the BOC in the MSATs program is roughly the same as the number of students that were sitting for it when it was an ATEP?
I would say right now, we're still coming out of COVID, even though that's been 4, 5, almost 6 years now. You're still seeing some of the after effects of that because it did hurt a lot of the AT programs. So as far as, to answer your question, overall numbers of, is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? I would say we're starting to see maybe around pre-pandemic levels. But when you look at the overall number of students in a MSAT program compared to your undergrad programs, I still think the number is down overall, just because the awareness of you have to get a master's degree and the stigma that might come with that. For certain people, like, oh, master's degree, that's 6 years of school. Do I really want to do that? So I think it's a little bit of both. The awareness isn't quite there, but the people who want to be there are still there. So I still think we're hovering around pre-pandemic levels.
So then taking that, do you think that is leading to the, let me put my hands up, the decrease in athletic trainers, aka the AT shortage? Do you think that awareness or the number of people taking the exam, since it's lower, do you think that's leading to a shortage of athletic trainers compared to the ATIP? Or
I would say it's contributing. I don't want to say it's the full reason. From what I'm looking at, we had our first cohort graduate and them looking for jobs. I still feel the public perception and awareness in certain capacities are lacking on how to fully quantify and value what an AT brings to the table. I don't think some of these places have really looked at the return on investment that you can get with an AT versus trying to outsource healthcare, or if you're trying to bring in a bunch of other people. So looking at some of these job offers that the students were getting, they were turning them down because it was either a non-livable wage for the area that they wanted to be in, or it was kind of unrealistic, in my mind, unrealistic expectations on, you have to be on call basically 24/7, 365 for this salary rate. So yes and no. It contributes for sure with the national numbers down as far as number of kids in cohorts and programs. But at the same time, I also do think, colleges, businesses, companies, whoever's hiring ATs don't fully understand the ROI on what this position actually brings.
okay, so I didn't have this down, but you made a great point that a lot of like students don't want to go to jobs or areas where they're not getting paid enough. And we all know that one of the biggest contributors to the athletic trainer shortage is pay. Look at college athletic training positions just on NATA or Indeed or wherever you're looking, and some of them are literally not paying a livable wage. We know that. That's why they're not being filled, right? But I remember back in 2014, 2015, when the MSAT programs were really starting to pop up, again, that's when I graduated undergrad, that the whole reasoning for the MSAT program, or moving from a bachelor's to a master's, was that, hey, we have a master's now you can ask for more money, like get paid more, things like that. And in the last 10 years, I don't see it. I actually think that not because of the masters, I just think in athletic training in general, we're getting paid less. Physical therapists are seeing it as well. Like they're getting paid 10% less than what they did 20, 30 years ago. So how is the master's program you can speak on NMSU or master's programs in general, but how are we getting the change? How are we getting those pay increases, the better work-life balance, being seen as healthcare providers, not just athletic trainers, like sports, things like that? What are we doing at NMSU and maybe all MSATs to help that?
Yeah. I can't speak on every program because just again unique scenarios or unique situations across the country, right? Like East Coast is way different than you look at like our programs here in West Texas versus Southern New Mexico, all that good stuff. But what we currently do is we have our professional prep class, and what we talk about in that class, is getting them ready for the workforce, right? Studying for BOC so they can enter the workforce, but also talking about the advocacy part. How do you advocate for yourself? How do you advocate for the profession? And I always tell the students this. I go, look, I've done my fight. I'm still helping lead the fight, but this is your profession. Like, you are entering in this profession. You are the young, energetic group that needs to continue pushing for probably what our generation was really pushing for of athletic trainers, really pushing for the better pay, the better work-life balance, those kind of things. So getting them to understand that just because you have the degree and you get a job doesn't mean you should focus solely on yourself. Because, I feel like our athletic training community as a whole, we try to look out for each other. So you should be helping your fellow ATs get better work-life balance, better pay, better jobs, and just really elevate the profession, not just from a one company, one business standpoint, but from, a local standpoint, a regional standpoint, state standpoint, whatever it might be.
I mean, that makes sense. I feel like, and I know you and I talk about this a lot, but our generation, so the ones that have been in roughly 10 years or, that like 8 to 12 year range, we're having to make up for the generations before us. The older generation that was, yeah, I'll work this, or yeah, I'll do that, or didn't understand the word no, or, prioritize the job over family and things like that. Nothing wrong with that. It worked for them. They had families, they did great. It's just different. We're a different generation, different times. There's easier ways to do things. And so I think we're the ones that are having to fix that, correct that for the ones that are just coming out of the MSAT programs that have 5 years or less, or the ones that are in the program now. They'll start to see those benefits as they continue, advocating that we're doing. The class that you're doing, like, I didn't have that. I had a professional development class, but it was more, how do you talk to coaches, how to write an injury report, things like that. And so I think we're the ones that were the change, the catalyst for it, like getting out of the profession, getting burnt out, the ones that are finally going on the social medias and complaining about it and, saying, hey, here's what's wrong with the job. Then the new generation is the ones that get to come in and say, okay, we're not taking it anymore. We're not even going to leave. We're going to take this profession, but we're not going to take those crappy college jobs, those crappy high school jobs. We're not working for those terrible coaches. Like, this is who we are. This is what we do. And we're not backing down. And so I think 10, 20 years from now, hopefully things have changed for the better. That it's not this or that, or, leave this job because of this. Or like you said, your students aren't taking certain jobs. It's all jobs are that way. Now you just, what setting do you want to be in? Hopefully I'm hoping that's where we get. I hope all our work was for nothing.
Yeah, and I would like to see that too. Again, just I feel like if there's some time and effort put into, not just on the AT side of it, but on some of these places that are actually doing the hiring and that want athletic trainers, you want this multi-talented, multi-skilled health professional, and maybe you don't even put in the work to look at what your return of investment actually is, where they could maybe save you with looking at the industry setting, right? Maybe they could save you $500,000-$600,000 a year on workers' comp claims because they're able to handle small things in-house. Cuts down on your referral processes, cuts down on time lost of work. And we know that's what makes the engine run in a company is you have to have the workers to put out the product. And if you can have one person there that is able to keep the workers there, keep the product going, I mean, that in my mind keeps money flowing for the people who want the money, who need the money, then just again, raising that advocacy and awareness, looking at how do I maximize this? I feel like the math is there, the writing is there. It's just changing the perception of what people are willing to do. And I think you made a good point. We had previous ATs that were, I call them the yes men or yes women, whatever you want to call it, right? Where they would say yes to a lot of the stuff. And then that's the perception that like those coaches or those bosses had, like, oh, this person's always going to say yes. They're always going to do this. They're going to do that. And then when you get a new person in, or somebody who may have done a little bit of research on different settings and whatnot, and they start saying no, who's the bad guy there? Is the boss the bad guy for saying, well, so-and-so before you did it, why aren't you doing it? Or is the AT the bad guy for, appearing lazy or not wanting to do their job? So I
The
feel like
worst
that's
phrase you can say in athletic training, the we've always done it this way, right? Like I feel like
yes.
everybody says, well, we've always done it this way, but we don't have to. I think you make a great point. Like it's the data. Having worked in the military, like that was half of my job. Oh my gosh, did I get so good at Excel and making charts and graphs and presenting them to leadership? It wasn't like, yes, people knew we can do prevention. Like that's one of our domains is preventing, athletic injuries or preventing injuries, period. But how do you report that, right? Like you can't be like, well, I prevented this many injuries because you don't know what you prevented. So I think it's more that return on investment. In the military, how many soldiers did I return to duty, or how many soldiers did I, help get deployable in the athletic setting? How many players did we have, last year that were injured and sat out? How many did we have this year? And showing that it's less, or how many did I return in a season, or things like that. Like people when they think data, it's how many people did it signed into the training room? Okay, cool, but what did you do with that? Okay, you had 700 sign-ins this semester. That doesn't mean anything to your admin, because how does that affect your head coach? How does that affect your principal? How does that affect your athletic director? Oh, well, of those 700, if they'd all went to a PT clinic, it would have cost the athletic department 1.2 million. Or in the days of NIL now, that would have cost these athletes this much money, or they would have lost out on this much money. And I think that's where we as athletic trainers really ourselves, we need to get good at it, right? But that's where we put athletic trainers in those positions of power. Like take that athletic trainer that's burnt out and doesn't want to do the clinical side of it anymore, but wants to advocate for those ATs, and put them in those assistant admin roles. Put them as athletic directors. Put them in as directors of sports medicine or directors of rehab at a hospital or something like that. And let them fight for it. There's athletic trainers out there, there's physical therapists out there that want to fight for it. That's all they want to do. I feel like that's better than the NATA in relying on the NATA like to do it for us. We hear the complaints, NATA doesn't do anything for us. How is this big like global, because they do other countries too, supposed to fight for you and your one little job? And I'm bad about it too. And I'm like, H2F, they didn't fight for us, but like they have so many other things that they have to do, and we don't see it, but we're not helping them either. We're not fighting for ourselves.
Yeah, we tell our students, and I'm a big part of this, and I stole this from Kim, our program director. Data drives dollars. So if you have the data and you know how to meaningfully apply it and use it, you're going to see money-driven results. And I mean, you're right. Showing admin or coaches or whoever, like, yeah, I saw 700 patient contacts, this semester. That doesn't mean anything. It's just like I said hi to 700 people. I mean, that could be as simple as that. Breaking that down, and how do I manipulate that and use that to my advantage? Okay, of those 700, I did 400 new evals. And we know, just when we look at billing and coding stuff, you look at just a basic musculoskeletal eval on like the coding network, it's like what, $45, anywhere from $30 to $45. You just show that right there how much money you saved these, especially in like the secondary setting. I feel it's very powerful, right? You show these parents how much you actually saved them from insurance co-pays and other, those parents that don't have insurance. You show them how much money you actually saved them by, hey, you went to see the AT for your ankle sprain. Cool. That was a saved ER visit, which could be, $500 to $1,000. It was saved x-rays. It was saved all of this stuff. A simple ankle sprain could have saved somebody, $2,000. And those things, especially if you present it in the right way, very impactful, very meaningful. And that's what we try to tell our students, as they are getting ready to leave and graduate the MSAT, is, hey, you need to have these data-driven decisions and show what you're doing is meaningful. and then hopefully that is one of the catalysts or driving factors for change.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think honestly, you could do episodes on just like how to drive data and just break it up. These are the things you need to look at. This is how you do it, and this is how you present it. I mean, one thing I want to do at our school, if we had an EMR that did it, is to take reports and say, hey, your child came in for all this stuff this year, whatever. This is how much we saved you. Kind of like end of the year, here's an email to this parent saying, hey, the sports medicine department at such and such school saved you and your family $2,000 in services for the school, right? I mean, like, even if it's, $50, $100 because they didn't come in very much. Your ACL kid, we saved you $10,000, whatever. But then 5 years, 10 years down the road, you did that for however many kids they have. That parent goes, applies for a school board position. You're still at that school. They remember, hey, the sports medicine department like saved me all this money. Now they're asking for just $10,000 to get whatever it is they're asking for, right? That's one kid they saved that money for, right? So I think that's something that I'm trying to look into for our school district that I work in, to say, hey, is there a way to do this? Maybe we can get some more money that way, because we all know schools are struggling for money, especially ours.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, and that's what I would tell, future grads or new grads is, do that. And then, maybe instead of sending it to every single parent, you generate the report for the entire year for the admin. And you'd be like, look, from our school alone, this is how much, cost of service we did, potential savings for, our patients or our families, and just use that and be like, okay, look, we did this. We saved more money than maybe the nurses did this year for some of these parents. So again, just informing new grads and informing what we do in our MSAT is really showing them the value of that. And that's a way to advocate for yourself. You have, advocate, when you look at people advocating for themselves, some people just think it's you're standing up there yelling through a microphone or yelling through a megaphone. That's not it. It can be low stakes, low key. Like, hey, you compiled this report. I sent it off to my admin. Like, look what I did this year. And yeah, you could use that to, justify or request extra funding for better equipment or stipend pay, whatever it might be. Like, you don't have to get in front of people and make this grand speech. You can do it behind the scenes. So that's one of the things that we do at our MSAT, is just really kind of showing them different ways to advocate, not just for themselves, but for their patients, for their jobs, for their state, region, and other professionals that they may come in contact with.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely going to go back into the MSAT program in a minute, and we're going to probably touch more on that. But I'm going to transition it over. So we got all on our high horses about the MSAT program a little bit. Now we're going to go something fun that both you and I, as comic book fans, are going to enjoy. And I have a feeling we're going to be on the same page about this, but maybe our reasoning is going to be a little bit different. But each week I always do like a little pop culture moment, kind of base it on the guests that I have on the show that week. So this week's pop culture moment, considering that the Thunderbolts / spoiler alert, New Avengers came out not that long ago, which would you rather be an athletic trainer for? The Avengers, and it doesn't have to be OG Avengers. It can be the New Avengers now. It can be Sam Wilson's Avengers. It can be comic book Avengers. But the Avengers, or like the Justice League. So think like DCEU, or it can be more of like the Arrowverse type Justice League. But which would you? I'm gonna let you go first. Would you rather be an athletic trainer?
I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I would definitely go with the Avengers. A Marvel guy all the way. Nothing wrong with DC, but ultimately, when I look at DC characters, there's more indestructible people. When we look at DC, like your main roster, Wonder Woman, Superman, The Flash, all of them really don't need healthcare. But when you look at the event,
like, I just want to know.
Yeah, right? And so, like, you look at the Avengers, like, I would just be best friends with Hawkeye, and I'd be like, hey, whatever you need, I got you.
Well, okay.
It gives me some more stuff to do.
Okay, so just because I'm going to go Avengers too, obviously. So, like, just talking about the Avengers first, the last couple movies that come out, the Thunderbolts, Captain America, those big fight sequences, like, Sam got his ass kicked by Red Hulk, right? He's coming out with his arm in a sling, like, broken bones. Like, you can rehab that up. And how cool would it be to go tell people, oh yeah, I'm the athletic trainer for Captain America? I mean, for me, dream job.
See, that would be badass. That'd be badass. I would go all for that. Be like, check this out.
imagine all the equipment he has, like that big ass compound. Like we've seen them working out in there. Like Tony Stark had to have left some cool stuff in there to do some rehab with, right? Like, and
Yeah,
then
for sure, has to.
like even Hawkeye, like you have to do a lot of like proprioception stuff for him. Like imagine the cool agility stuff. Like, oh yeah, what did you do today in rehab? Oh well, he climbed a building or jumped off a building. That was his rehab for today. Like that'd be so. Or Thor, like when he's doing the battle ropes in like in Infinity War's Endgame, he's doing like getting like losing all the weight. Be like, oh yeah, his workout, I programmed it. Like I got him to look like look like that. Like how badass is that? Like, but then
I
you get
would.
like, well,
I was gonna
I
say,
was
like,
just gonna say,
yeah,
how do you get like Superman? How do you rehab?
give him a pat on the back and say, "Good job. Here's some vitamin D."
And by the time he sees you, he's already healed. Here's some kryptonite. Like we're gonna slow you down a little bit. What else? What else do you do for him? Wonder Woman, the Flash, who heals like within 10 seconds. Like my job security's not very good there.
For sure. Well, and then I mean, you look at some of the other ones. I mean, like Aquaman, he's just gonna go hang out in the sea, and he's all better, right? So you have less things to do with the Justice League, in my opinion, right? Probably a hot take there. Justice League doesn't do as much as the Avengers, but you have just, even if you just go based off just the movies alone, right? You have less to do. There's less Justice League characters. There's less, human based characters or the average everyday Joe. So yeah, I mean, just again, based purely off the movies, it's hands down an easy call as the Avengers.
I mean, the only one I can think of from the Justice League that might be worth it and might like keep my job would be Batman. Like Bruce Wayne, like he just does stupid shit, and then he comes back and he's all broken. It's like, okay, Alfred's gonna take care of him, get him conscious again, and then you get to do your rehab. But even then, he's so stubborn, he's not even gonna do it. Like, and be like, all right, do 3 sets of 10 quad sets, and he's like, no, I need to go like lift weights, or I need to go drive my motorcycle into a burning building. Like he's not going to do your rehab anyways, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, that, and think about all the secret identities you have to keep, right? So like I feel like the Justice League is very secretive. You don't know who they are, but the Avengers are like, yeah, I'm Iron Man, I'm Captain America.
You
So
have to be on your HIPAA for Justice League.
yeah.
There's like a whole separate thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're right with Batman. He'd just be like, nope, I'm gonna go do this. Are you really gonna tell Batman he can't fight crime for a night? I think he'll probably put you in the coma and be like, see you later.
Accurate. I mean, I wouldn't want to live in Gotham City anyways, so I don't think I'd feel safe there. I'd have to commute every day. I'd be like, all right, bye. I'm gonna come in from one of the other cities, and like, hey, I'll have Superman fly me in from Metropolis. Like, I don't feel safe here.
Yeah.
Okay, so going from that again, I knew that would be a great one. Like, definitely my favorite topics ever is comic books, movies, anything like that. Okay, so we're gonna go into our weekly debate before we go into our special part of SCATA and advocacy. So this is usually where, if I have multiple people on the show, I usually try to pick people from both sides, right? You being an MSAT professor and me being a formerly undergrad athletic trainer who didn't really like the MSAT program for a really long time, this is going to be interesting because I'm going to come at this from all the questions I used to have and still have about master's program, and hopefully the other people on can have their questions too, but hopefully not necessarily change my mind or change anybody else's mind, but just educate us so that we don't have, I say for those of us that, again, aren't 100% sold on the master's program, have a better understanding. I think that's been a lot of the problem for those that have been in the profession for a while, is we just went from undergrad to master's and we're doing this and you don't really have a choice and bam, bye. And we've just seen what the NATA has said about it, what these programs have put out, but nobody's really like informed us, I guess, on an informal level, I guess is the best way to
see that.
Yeah, I can see that. So just, I mean, we're going to start really simple. What is the difference between what used to be the ATEP program, so the undergrad degrees, those 4-year programs, and what is now the current 2025 master's programs? Because I know they've changed in the last 10 years. Like, they're always changing. So we're going to go off of what your new incoming, I guess, students in your current level 2s are doing.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest difference to look at right away is when you compare undergrad versus master's programs. When you're an undergrad, you have all the other classes on top of it. You're getting your gen ed classes, you're getting these extra science classes, electives, right? And not every program always had an AT degree. It might have been like an AT emphasis, and it could have been like a kinesiology or an exercise science based degree. So the number of like background from the undergrad programs like that fed into their athletic training programs, that's what's mainly different now. Because when you get to the MSATs, it is all AT. There's no extra classes, there's no random history class. For our kids at NMSU, they used to take this inset class in undergrad, and randomly just taking a bug class their senior year when they're trying to study for the BOC. Those aren't there anymore. So that would be your primary difference. It's all AT, straight 2 years straight. And the other big difference is, I just kind of alluded to it, is the 2 years straight. There's no summer off. Like when you're an undergrad, you had summers off for the most part. And I know some programs you still had things to do, but you had summers off. In the MSAT, you really don't. You get a couple weeks off here and there from classes, but they're basically in a 23-month continuous program. And it's depending on which program you're looking at, anywhere from 50 to 60 credit hours of just pure AT. So it's 100% AT all the way.
Okay. So taking that, all just athletic training classes, what kind of is the curriculum like? Like, kind of lay it out for me, because I know when I was in undergrad, and a lot of undergrads had this similar system, right? Because it was KD accredited, so you had to follow a certain curriculum. But like, we went lower, upper, path and farm. Then we had the next year we come in rehab, then therapeutic modalities, then, like your professional development class thing, whatever. So what kind of curriculum and kind of like what's the order? So what are your new summer kids starting what? This week? Next week? What are they going to like start with? What are the classes they're starting?
Yeah. So to kind of give a little background on that, when you look at the new accreditation standards, the 2021s, they give you, I feel, more flexibility in how you build the program. So no 1-2 programs are exactly identical when it comes to classes anymore. Yes, you still have the same standards you're supposed to teach, but they give you the freedom as to when and where you are going to assess those. You still have your clinical ed classes. Those are pretty standard across all programs, and they still have to follow a logical path. Right. So like for ours, for example, for NMSU, we are on the 60 credit hour block, and we kind of still follow that similar. You start out with lowers because in my mind, that is the highest incident of injury that you're going to see. So if we want to get them a more meaningful clinical experience in the fall where they can see a lot of those things and be able to jump right in, start with lowers, right? We do lower eval. Ensuing semester, we do upper eval. Then the following fall, they do their head, neck, and spine eval. So we kind of have our 3 different eval classes. And then we kind of follow the same path with our therapeutic interventions classes. So what we do, which is a little different, is we don't have just a pure modalities class anymore. We don't have just a pure rehab class anymore. We basically took domain 4, which is your therapeutic interventions, and that's our class title now, is therapeutic interventions. So in the fall, it's therapeutic interventions 1, and that's your common modalities that you're going to see that almost 99% of all ATs use, and it's going to be lower extremity rehab. So it lines up with their eval class. So now, as they're going through that fall semester, right, they're going to see initial injury, immediate eval, immediate care, and then long-term care. Like, how do I manage this ankle sprain? So basically, they're going to see ankle sprain from day 1 to return to play. And then in the spring, therapeutic 2 is upper extremity rehabilitation, and it is more advanced modalities that maybe not everybody uses, but we still have to keep them on fresh in their minds because the BOC still loves to ask about diathermy, loves to ask about traction, some of those modalities that maybe not everybody uses or thinks to use, but there's still that potential for that BOC question or questions on those. So that's kind of how we kind of roll that curriculum. Our kids start next week. Since the masters, they come in with widely different levels of undergraduate backgrounds now. We thought it was pertinent to do a clinical and functional anatomy class to get them ready for the AT, the musculoskeletal world. Because yes, we all know everybody takes AMP1, everybody takes AMP2. But not all classes are created equal. Not all professors are created equal. So I've noticed this will be the 3rd year that I've gone through this class that kids come in with a wide range of musculoskeletal knowledge. So this kind of gets them the terminology, ligaments, muscles, bones, all the stuff that they might see in later classes. it kind of gives them a massive summer refresher class and then learn some new stuff to make their anatomy knowledge better. Because one of my beliefs, piggybacking on that, is if you have a foundational understanding of anatomy and a fundamental understanding of anatomy, eval rehab's easy. If you don't know the anatomy, eval is going to be harder. Rehab's going to be a little bit harder. So that's one of the things that we do to help that. And then we have our foundations class, which does like the taping, the wrapping, some of those entry level skills that we would want them to be able to hit the ground running in their first clin ed class.
Makes sense. I mean, when I was in undergrad, I actually really enjoyed my functional anatomy class because, like you said, my A&P 1 and 2, I did at a community college. So yeah, I knew what the muscles were, the tendons were, the nerves, and things like that. But let's be real, like 10 years into this, I can't tell you what every single nerve innervates or what muscle is innervated by what nerve, right? But I know the ones I needed to know because I had that functional anatomy class. And then also, like, sometimes I'm like, there's a muscle that does like this, and I know what it is, but it's like, yeah, that's your drinking muscle, right? And it's like, oh crap, I gotta go write my notes. What is it again? But I remember it like from that functional anatomy class, or like I remember the inside of the quad does this, the outside of the quad does that, things like that. Soleus does this versus calf. But I'm like, wait, what muscle was it again? Because I don't remember. And then like the lymphatic system, don't get me. I learned about it, but I know enough to be like, that sounds like a lymph problem. That sounds like, an endocrine problem. That's not me. That needs to go to somebody else. But like functional anatomy, had I not had that, oh my gosh, like I still struggle with shoulder just because shoulder is the shoulder. Like there's so much to know about it. But I can almost tell you what's wrong with it off of the subjective because I'm like, oh, it hurts when he does this and this. And like, okay, it's got to be one of these muscles I need to test versus like if I just went off just my anatomy and all the stuff that's from here to here, like be there for 3 hours trying to test everything out. No, that's actually awesome that that's one class I like that y'all have that I had in undergrad because I don't know where I'd be without that class. Another big question, it was one I had when I was in undergrad working with master's students, and then it is a hot topic in a lot of athletic trainers today, but it's the clinical portion, right? So when we talk MSATs, we talk book smarts versus, application, practical application, and that the students that are coming out of MSAT programs are hella book smart. They know the things, but they can't apply it. And a lot of the athletic trainers that went through the internship route, this is like their biggest gripe, right? We were thrown into the wolves and we did everything, and the master's kids are just spending all their time in the class. So tell me kind of what the clinical side of it works. Like, where do they go? What kind of settings do they do? How many hours do they need? Like, and what do they get in those hours? And like, kind of show me that it's not just them being in a classroom reading from books, I guess.
Yeah, again, I can't speak for every program because you get the flexibility to run that. One of the guiding principles that we have to follow with clinical education is the across the lifespan. So we need to show that they are seeing different age groups, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different levels of activity. And that's kind of the focus versus, oh, you have to work a male sport. You have to work a female sport. You have to do football or something with equipment. Like we can bypass that if we show, because we know now AT is not just in sports. They are in a multitude of different settings working with a variety of patients. So just showing really the variety of patients that you are seeing, that's the big thing that we guide for clin ed. So I would say to kind of dispel the myth here is depending on how the program's set up, you actually get more clinical experience as an MSAT student versus an undergrad student. And I say that because you don't have all those extra classes that you're doing. You look at the average undergrad degree, it's 120-ish credit hours. And depending on, what the student's doing, they might be in 12 one semester, but they might be in 17 the next semester. Whereas you look at the MSATs, yes, I get it, it's 2 years, it's cut in half, so it's 60 credits, but we forget those two summer sessions that they have. So that actually cuts out how many credits they take in the fall and the spring. And then with that, since it's just AT classes, the integration, I feel, is much better. So what we teach in the classroom, what I'm working with our preceptors now is, okay, this is what they learned in the classroom, to however you are comfortable with, grill them on it. So like, for example, I teach lower eval. As soon as we're done with the ankle, I try to let the preceptors know, like, hey, we are done with ankle. They've all tested. They've passed my little test. I feel pretty comfortable that you could start letting them see just letting them eval. Ankle injury comes off the field, kid comes limping off the field, the obvious ankle problem, let the MSAT kid do it. And so I try to do that with our clin ed stuff to really get that integration from textbook to clinical practice, and then, getting feedback from my preceptors and, then bringing that back in the classroom. Like, hey, so preceptor A told me that, some of you are not comfortable still doing anterior drawer test or whatever it might be. So let's go back and review that really quick. What is it for? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And let's practice some. So getting that constant, feedback and keeping the preceptors on the same page. So that's one of the big things. Like I said, if you do it right, and again, every program's a little bit different, but bringing the preceptors into the classroom per se, right? Bringing them into the classroom and then, showing that integrated approach. I feel like the MSAT kids ultimately at the end of their 2 years are going to get more clinical experience in certain cases than your undergrad kids would get.
Okay, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I know having, and I don't want to say work with you guys but like helping you out and giving like advice and stuff on the military side of it, it's kind of cool that they have to do the longer immersions versus when I was an undergrad. I went to UTA. We didn't have on-campus football, right? And we did semester-long immersions. So I only got, in 3 years, not counting like you're applying to the program and you kind of shadow different people, right? But like once you got in the program your sophomore year, you only got 6 sites. So the one way like UTA combated this was, hey, if you're on an on-campus sport, so like for example, I had women's basketball, Division I women's basketball, but you need to have football too. So on Thursdays and Friday nights, here's your school that you're going to go see for football. Well, I didn't do crap because it was usually a student that was assigned to that high school that was there every day. And then I just showed up for game days because what else is going on Thursdays and Fridays? Because I had women's basketball, that we had to prepare for and things like that. So like I just got to see how basically athletic trainers talk to coaches on the sideline and like how they, calm kids down, things like that, because I didn't do crap. I didn't eval. They didn't trust me. They didn't know me enough. And then my professors turn around. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Because I came straight from one sport to had to go eat, so I didn't get the luxury. Like my only, besides I got high school, Texas high school is Texas high school. I mean, yeah, Texas high school football is probably equivalent to like a D2 university. Okay. But I got that. I got on-campus sports like baseball, women's basketball. We had the option to do like the 5Ks, like the Susan G. Komans and things like that, but you didn't have to. Those were just volunteer hours. And then I think we had to do 1-2 week rotation at Mission Arlington, which is kind of like their version of like the homeless shelter medical thing. Like anybody can walk in, you don't have to have insurance, things like that. So we did that. But even there, like they didn't know what an athletic training student was, so they didn't let me do anything but file. They were like, okay, file, answer phone calls. And I was like, no, I'm here to like watch what the doctors do. So that was all the experience I had. Whereas now your students are like, especially here in El Paso, we'll get to in a minute, but college, high school, industrial, military, maybe whenever that comes back.
Adjacent.
Military, but like, the clinics they have, and then they can go off. They can go spend a summer or, whatever at another school, another state to see what the difference between New Mexico is in New England or, the Midwest or Pacific Northwest or whatever they want to do. So I think that's one thing we didn't get in the undergrad or the internship route. Internship route was whatever was on campus or whatever was in 5 miles of campus.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to our first point, like what is the difference between an MSAT and an undergrad program is you, again, look at the clinical site opportunities. Again, 10 years ago, I would have never been able to do a site in an industry setting. We have the Amazon warehouses here that we are actively trying to get into and bring into the fold as one of our clinical sites. But just looking at the sheer number of different clinical placements that we potentially could partner with. So like at NMSU right now, we have the area high schools. We have our on-campus Division I sports. We have high schools in El Paso that we're working with. Military adjacent, we're trying that, but since those kind of went away, I'd pause those for right now. But again, actively trying to work with the Amazon industry side of it. I know there's one, the Snyder electric plant in El Paso as well. So just, again, it's more about like myself, I got to network a little bit as the clinical coordinator to try to show the benefits of them being, having a student and being able to see some of these, because we have students, and especially in our program, and 99% sure this is other programs as well, they're not all going to be traditional students, meaning they don't want to just go into the high school setting, or they don't just want to go into the college setting. We have one student that is very interested in the tactical setting, wants to go work in the police fire department realm, because she has seen, throughout various networking opportunities, that is a clinical site. So we are actively working on that for an immersion site for her. And so that's, again, the other key difference between MSAT and undergrad is that immersion potential. So to kind of combat the lack of 3 years of clinical experience, programs have the option of at minimum 4 weeks, but maximum 16 weeks to do a clinical immersion. So during that time, the student is out at clinicals, and that is all they do. So if the AT there is 55 hours a week, guess what the immersion student's going to be? They're going to be there 55 hours a week as well. And so the idea of that immersion is let them see what the profession truly is. We don't want to sugarcoat it, because we have some sites that I could put just about anybody there and they would get a very rosy view of what athletic training is, because that AT has worked very hard to get, a good working relationship with their coach, good working relationship with whatever admin they deal with, and with the athletes. So you might get that very, graduation goggles, I like to call them at times. You get that rosy view of everything where it's like, oh, this is great. And then you take your first job and it is absolutely horrible.
Is my undergrad experience.
Right? So, just learning from other individuals on how do we make that better, and how can we do that with the immersion side. So we give our students an 8-week immersion, and they get a pick, right? They can pick summer, fall, or spring of their second year. Most people pick fall and spring because it's easier for them to manage to find housing, and there's more stuff going on at those times. So like we had one student just this last spring who went to Miami University in Ohio and worked with their synchronized skating and ice hockey team, if I remember correctly. So they have the option to go wherever they want. And for us, as long as we get our affiliation agreement set up, that is good to go. So this upcoming fall semester, we actually have another kid going back to Ohio, but this time they're going to Columbus to work with the Columbus Crew, the MLS soccer team. They got an internship with them, so they are going to do that and you're going to see a lot of these internships that used to be available are going to turn into clinical immersions. So that's evolving as well. So again, that's another difference that you're seeing with MSAT versus undergrad. You're losing some internships, but they're becoming clinical immersions instead.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was actually going to go to one of my questions I was going to ask. Is now that we're switching to the masters, and you have to have a master's now, like there is, unless you're in the state of Texas, California, whatever. So a lot of the GA positions are disappearing, or if they're there, they turned into like that internship, like paid internship, and it's like, here's $12,000, right? So where do you see the athletic trainers like that want that Division I college job, or they want that NFL job, or whatever that requires you to have so much experience? You used to get that experience through GA. Are we doing that now as clinical immersion, now taking that spot? Is that counting as the experience? Or are they still having to go do an actual internship? Where's that experience part of it coming in at?
Do you want my hot take on that? I really feel like the way that the internships are working is it's a workaround to getting the cheap GA labor again. However, I think with better advocacy and education, you're starting to see that the immersions are taking those places. Some places are able to offer some paid expenses for the immersions, others are not. But I would implore some of those universities that are doing that, so that have the GAs or the interns, I should say, not GAs, the internships that are trying to do those pays, I would flip that and make it an immersion. Float the students that are coming in some money, like make it hey, instead of this internship where we have to have a certified AT, yes, we can have a second year MSAT student that's going to come in and be like a second set of hands and eyes for our certified, throw them a little bit bone with some money there. Ultimately, again, you could probably save some money that way too. You don't have to pay them for the entire 10 months. You pay them for 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, depends on like how long that they can feasibly be there. Most immersions are going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 months anyway. But yes, that does require some more time and effort from some of those universities, because that requires more training, and you're going to have those constant turnovers. But maybe that's an avenue that we should see. The other thing I started to notice more now is the NFL, MLB, MLS, those internships are highly geared towards MSAT students. So you're not seeing as much of the, fresh grads season long. I mean, yes, they still have some of those season long interns, but you're seeing a lot of those preseason and summer interns. Those are MSAT students. So like last year we had a student who went to North Carolina and worked with, I believe it was the Ranger single A team there. That was his internship over the summer. It was a paid internship, but he got to do that. We have another kid this year going to with the Chargers, and he's going to do the summer / preseason with the Chargers. So you're starting to see those internships are becoming more popular as well for the MSAT students, again, to enhance their clinical experience. And my hot take here, I would argue it depends on how you frame your experience, right? You could use, in my mind, your MSAT time as experience depending on how you frame it. Right? If you can prove, and we have our tracking system that we can do this, I can prove X number of clinical hours. I can show X number of patient contacts and encounters and show them like all of this data that says, although they don't have quote unquote working experience, this person has seen 700 athletes this semester. They did 300 clinical hours on top of their classroom hours getting ready for this career. So, framing clinical experience is a big factor, I think, in that.
Okay, yeah, if you frame it like that, because I mean, coming from me, like, gonna play devil's advocate here, if I'm gonna hire somebody, not the high school setting, because I do think that is a great, like, entry level job, but even like I'm NFL and I'm hiring for an assistant athlete trainer, I want you to come in with experience, right? Like, I'm not gonna see your resume and be like, oh, this kid's straight out of college. So yeah, you frame it like that, and I can be like, oh, okay, well, in college you did this, this, and this, but otherwise, I have in my head like they were a student, like everything they did in AT had to go behind them and do it and make sure it was okay, and I want this person to be on their own for whatever job I'm hiring. So I can see both sides of it. I mean, I can see the experience. They definitely need the experience, right? So those internships turn into the immersion route, and they are geared more towards an internship versus that clinical site that, hey, I'm going to go watch. I'm going to maybe do an eval here or there. I'm going to maybe help make a rehab plan versus, yeah, hey, I talked to coaches. I did this. I was the one involved in making, the pregame plan or whatever. Then you can see, okay, you know what you're doing, right? Again, high school setting, maybe a small college setting. Those are great entry levels. Like, I don't need to know what you did. Like, you're about to learn everything when you get here anyways, right? But yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't think about is what is the actual experience that they're getting.
Yeah. Well, and you also got to look at it. I was going to say, you also have to look at it this way too. The language and the standards is what are we trying to do with these students? We're trying to gear them towards supervised autonomous practice. So basically, how we interpret that, the CATI, the accreditation body, is telling us that our students can practice autonomously if they are being supervised. So they can make those decisions, and that comes with part of my job, training the preceptors to think that way, training the preceptors to be like, yes, I get it, you're starters. I'm not going to sit there and argue with you, but that bench warmer that really doesn't play at all, or that hypochondriac who's always coming in with everything under the sun, like, hey, if you don't want to deal with that headache, let the MSAT student do it. So it does fall a little bit in this new model. It falls on the clinical coordinators. I think their jobs are a little bit more important now, where you have to train the preceptors to understand, like, this is the direction in which we want these kids to come out. So like, we're going to pride ourselves on having clinically competent students. So you can trust when they get out in the field, they can do their job. You're not going to have to worry about them getting sued, as I like to tell them. You can be clinically competent, you're not going to get sued. So I would say doing that is important.
That was always what we got told. Like, oh, you can't do this because we're going to get sued. So you can, here, I'm going to tell you what to do and go do it, right? We never actually got I know being undergrads, some of my preceptors were, hey, you're going to go hang out at softball. Call me, need me. Like, you handle everything besides maybe talking to a parent or whatever. But coach has questions, you're going to handle it. Call me if you need me, text me if you need me, right? But then I've also seen students come out. And I've also seen, I'm big on social media, so I see those athletic trainers on social media, and they're like, hey, I have big imposter syndrome, and I have this, and I have this, and it's like, okay, I reach out to you, because that's a thing, I get it too, like, I freak out if I miss a fracture or whatever, but it's like, what basis do you have? Were you ever left alone, or was your first day alone your first day at work? Because if that's the case, then this is going to be you for the rest of your career, right? Like, you never had that. Whereas, that's what my GA ship was. I was a GA, and it was like, okay, cool, I'm here. We have 3 certified athletic trainers, that are in positions, but like, you are in charge of the track team. You are in charge of cross country. Let us know if you need our help, right? And so I think like some of these internship athletic trainers, I call them the old school ITs, they don't understand that because that's all they know is they were thrown out and this is their team. They weren't supervised. They weren't really taught unless, they were in the classroom. It was practice is this is your team, go do it. And I hear that all the time. I'm like, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and like I said, it really falls on that clinical coordinator, building that trust with the preceptors and kind of sharing a common goal and showing like, hey, this is what we want to accomplish. Because, you as an incoming preceptor here, I'll share this with you. You're going to be part of the NMSU family, so you will be associated with that. So when we have our alumni all over the place and they know like, oh, you are associated with NMSU, you've been a preceptor, they know the kind of quality students that hopefully you are training and putting out. Like you're imparting your clinical knowledge, your clinical skills onto them and giving them that chance to maybe make some independent decisions. Like I love one of our preceptors does a very good job if it's a reevaluation of maybe an injury that she saw Saturday and they're coming in again Monday, say, hey, I tweaked my ankle again. She does a good job, said, okay, she already kind of knows what it is, but she lets the student run it. She stands kind of out of sight. It's still in the same room, right? But kind of stands out of sight and lets the student do the whole thing. And, just building that trust, like it takes buy-in from the athletes as well, or the patients that you're working with. So, if you put the students in that situation and the athletes buy in, then yes, they're going to be more open to letting the student maybe run an eval with the preceptor maybe not being right over their shoulder. So again, my job, training the preceptors to think in this way, to allow or to work towards that supervised autonomous practice where do I need to be standing over their shoulder every single second, critiquing or criticizing everything they do? Or can I maybe go work with this guy at this table and then my students working with this other guy at another table? And I trust that they know what they are doing and they're doing the right things. Or I can, and have those debriefs at the end, right? Like, what did you do? What did you feel? What did you see? And just creating that. And I think that's a great thing to do for preceptors and clinical directors, or clinical coordinators, sorry.
The next question we have, and this is actually something that somebody submitted to me. So under our category, we have like, how does the master's help or hurt the profession? Because that's a lot of questions I got, right? And one of the big things was, how is the MSAT, so the master's, compared to like other healthcare professions? Like we saw PTs go to the doctorate program, right? You see OTs or masters, some doctors, depending on. You've got the NPs, the PAs, like how does that master's level for us set us either apart or put us in the talks? Like, did it help? Did it hurt us? What's happened in the last 10 years?
I would say it has helped in a sense. And what I mean by that is it really depends on who you talk to. I feel AT made the move because PT was always masters initially, right? There were bachelors and masters, and we wanted to be viewed on the same level. For some, and here's my other hot take against physical therapy here a little bit is AT always is comparing themselves to physical therapists, even though we do widely different jobs. And this is no shade at a physical therapist, but I feel like that was one of the justifications or the reasons to move to a master's is like, hey, we're trying to be this healthcare professional. We are these healthcare professionals. We want to be viewed as this. And we look at all these other healthcare professions, they have a master's level or higher. And so I think, AT as a whole kind of had that imposter syndrome a little bit, kind of piggyback on that, and was like, hey, we need to do something that we can, hang our hats on and say, look, we are not just an undergrad degree. Again, a little bit depending on who you talk to on that. From what I have seen personally, I think it's better because when I look at students coming out, graduating with the degree, right? You had with the undergrad degrees around 22, 23 years old. So 22, 23-year-old taking a job for the very first time. Maturity level may not always be there. We look at a master's now, 24 to 26, some of your non-traditional students might be closer to 30. You would hope, I can't say this is true for everybody, but you would hope that the maturity level is there. They can handle a little bit more because they've gone through a little bit more in their life. And, for me, I feel like it's easier to step into a high school position as a 24, 25, maybe 26-year-old versus a 22-year-old because now you are or shouldn't, unless you work their middle schools, like you're not going to see some of the kids you went to high school with that are now your athletes, right? So I think that's that's a benefit of that. How has it helped us? The maturity level, and then putting some of our young professionals in less compromising situations where they might still get viewed as a student or as a high school buddy if they're working in the secondary setting.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Okay, so what about so kind of piggybacking off of that, have you seen like a decrease, increase, or do you even see it at all? That like gateway degree. So like back when I was an undergrad, and a lot of undergrads are like this, athletic training was seen as that gateway degree. Like I'm gonna go on to med school, I'm gonna go on to PT school, I'm gonna go on to PA school, whatever the case may be, I'm gonna use athletic training. Which was kind of nice because then those people are dual credentialed, they know what we do, we reach out to them and it made life easier. Do you see any of that anymore? I mean, that's my biggest question is do people even go for a master's degree to then get another degree in something else?
Yeah, I would. There's a couple students that will still maybe pursue that path, but what I've seen now that is the shift is kinesiology is now that gateway degree. Kinesiology is the degree that kids get for AT, PT, OT, even PA school, sometimes even med school. So I don't think AT is the gateway degree as it might have been perceived as in the past. There are a few of those, right? We've had some kids that have applied when we're doing our like interview process through their applications. They say, we always ask them, what's your like 5-10 year plan? And we've had a couple of say, I'm going to graduate, get my AT degree, then, either get some clinical experience, or I might just go right into applying for PA school or applying to PT school. I had one student tells me she's going to go to med school. She wants to be an AT MD orthopedic surgeon is kind of what her career goal is. So I think that's a very interesting combination. And I think that could open up a very unique pathway that might, I don't want to like put the horse in front of the cart here, but potentially could, enhance the orthopedic route for MDs, because now you have all this clinical experience and musculoskeletal knowledge going into medical school as an ortho person. You could then spend your time in med school and residency really refining and enhancing that so you're even better coming out of med school.
Then you could specialize in sports.
Yeah,
Like, hey,
specialize.
AT or whatever I'm gonna be. No, that'd be. I mean, so do you? So you said kinesiology would be more your gay one or your exercise science. Do you see a lot more people coming into the MSAT programs with like a strength and conditioning already, or any of those like certs that us as athletic trainers didn't have and are now having to go get? Or is it still just, I have no idea about any of this?
What we're seeing, right, most of them are fresh. I have no idea what a CSCS or a CES is. It really depends on the kinesiology or whatever their undergrad degree is. Like, I know a little bit of inside knowledge here with NMSU is there's a way for them to get their CSCS through undergrad. So they could come out with that credential coming into our program. I know they're working on some more easier pathway to get that accomplished, but it really depends on the school. I know I've made the comments in our staff with our MSAT faculty is how can we maybe bring in a certification to make our grads more marketable coming out, and the CSCS has been one of them depending on their background coming in.
I just know that like I had to go and get all of that stuff now, and everybody's like, oh, do you have this, I'm like, well, thank goodness I got it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about preceptors, and this is probably going to be our last one unless you have anything else on MSATs. But what are some advice you have to like maybe people that just graduated from an MSAT program, or maybe like myself, an older athletic trainer who's now becoming a preceptor? Like, what is some advice you have for preceptors to help themselves out and then also be productive for their students and help their students out?
Yeah, the biggest thing I tell, especially our preceptors, is it's not the same. Unfortunately, it's not the same as it was when you were in school. And getting them to understand that, makes it more of a symbiotic relationship between student, preceptor, and clinical coordinator. So getting on the same page and educating the preceptors, like this is kind of the goals that we wish to accomplish. I send our students with like a little sheet that says like, here are my goals, here's my schedule. So communication is the big thing, right? So everybody's on the same page. So you as a preceptor understand when the student's going to be there. And I would say that's one of my biggest advice is have a schedule. So you're not chasing down worrying like, okay, where's the student at? And understanding that class is important because for us, they can't become athletic trainers if they don't pass the BOC. So they can be the best clinical student ever, but if they don't pass the test, they have all of this clinical knowledge that they legally can't use. So that's the other piece of advice I give our new preceptors or young preceptors is, put an emphasis on academics, get a schedule so it just takes one less thing off your plate, and understand that myself as the clinical coordinator, I'm not expecting you to teach them stuff out of the textbook. I'm not expecting you to teach them something that you don't know. I want them to work with you in what you know, and you can impart some tips, tricks, study methods, whatever you can do to benefit them. Because I'm of the big belief that the more people you learn from, the better clinician you're going to be, the better AT you're going to be.
Okay, makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Okay, so anything else that you want to add, push out, say about the Masters in Athletic Training programs?
I mean, just besides my obligatory shout out, like, hey, come to NMSU because we got some cool things coming in the pipeline. We're trying to be, a very different program from UNM, and we have aspirations to be just as good, if not better, than Texas Tech, because that's kind of the school I look up to personally with how their program is run. So we're getting there. Yes, we're new, but we have already had a lot of students that have been out on their immersions that say that we're doing something right because they feel a little bit better prepared than some of the other students that they have worked with. Again, this is no shade on anybody else. This is just me. This is just me toting NMSU's horn here for a little bit. But it takes a village, right? We have to continue to advocate for this. We have to educate ourselves, understand what MSATs are, how they are different, and promote it. We can't sit here and say, well, I did undergrad and I think the MSAT is stupid. You can have that opinion. That's fine. I'm not going to sit here and judge you on that, but we still have to invest in our future. And the way that our future is going to be is the MSAT program. So I would encourage those people listening and all that is if you have that view of MSATs, well, it's stupid because we did it, it's an undergrad. Yes, you can have that view, that's fine, but we have to invest in our future. The students are the future. This next generation coming up is the future, and this is how they become AT. So if we take a more positive approach towards the MSAT, towards AT education, I do think we'll start to see some very beneficial outcomes for our profession as a whole.
Well said, and nice little prop in there for NMSU. Okay, so we're gonna transition from one side of your, I guess, jobs, your main job at NMSU, and now we're gonna go on to your other position that you hold as president of the Sun City Athletic Trainers Association. This is where you get to plug both El Paso and NMSU. So I know both of us were really big in advocacy for the profession, and we understand that yes, big advocacy in ATA, in our case SWATA, is great and wonderful, but we know that like most of it comes from the local level. Like if we want big change and we want things to affect us, we have to do it at the local level, right? So I want you to tell me just a little bit about what is SCATA, like what's the mission for those that aren't from the El Paso area, or even those that are listening and aren't involved in SCATA as much. Just tell me about like what our current mission is, our vision, what we're doing, things like that.
Yeah, so simple vision, right? We don't try to be extravagant here, but it's more or less just increasing the visibility of the profession, increasing public awareness and perception of athletic training, and providing better resources for our athletic trainer. My personal mission with this is I want El Paso, southern New Mexico, like our Sun City area, to be an AT hotspot. And how do we do that? You kind of touch base on it. It's local advocacy. Like we have to, get buy-in from so many different entities where they're like, hey, do you know your athletic trainer at your school or at your college or wherever it is? If you don't, find them because they are a fantastic resource for you to have. So really just pushing public awareness, being there for our members, and then just one of our new personal goals is to invest in the future. So invest in the students that are wishing to enter this realm.
So speaking of that, we're going to take it and we're going to basically divide SCATA into two. And we do this as actual board members anyways, but the professional side and the student side. So focusing on that professional side first, both of our roles, like again, president, PR rep, what are some things that we're doing? And I can speak on this as well because I'm the one that pushes it out to everybody, but like, what are some things that we're doing in our association on the professional level, either in the upcoming year, in the next years we want to do to really promote not just SCATA, but the athletic training profession in general?
Yeah, so we're still in the development stages, right, for 25-26 year. The mission for this year, the goal for this year is to elevate the profession. So it's really bringing standards of practice up and kind of getting people to understand that just because we've done it the same way for 10, 15, 20 years doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way or it's the best way. So just kind of bringing in more evidence, more data-driven, evidence-based practice, evidence-based medicine, right? That's kind of the topic for the profession, the professional side this year. And, I'll let you segue into kind of our first event there. I'm kind of leading that charge to start off is our first summer event at the end of July.
Right. So, I mean, like you said, we're trying to get evidence-based medicine and just keeping it local and things that pertain to us. One of the things we're doing in July is going to be that heat illness workshop. I know you at NMSU, you guys worked with who was it again that came out to you guys? Which one did you? Was it David Conley?
Daryl Conway with Sports Medicine Emergency Management. Don't quote me
Yeah,
100% on that.
no, it is because there's like three guys that work there and they all like go through the country. So I didn't know which one came out to you guys. But yeah, we're kind of gonna do a like mini version of that. And the hopefully goal, and I don't know if we're gonna achieve it because it was kind of planned last minute, but the goal is to take what athletic trainers already know, both the older generation of athletic trainers from experience and working here in El Paso, dealing with this heat, dealing with these dust storms, right? Dealing with the emergencies, and then also those newer athletic trainers that are getting more of that evidence-based stuff, the new protocols, procedures, the gold standards of measuring, like, body core temp for rectal temperature. And so, like, taking that and merging them together so we're learning from each other, and then taking that and pushing it out to the other professionals. Like, the big thing we're going to really be focusing on is, again, heat illness in the sports related realm. So think your high school, your middle school sports, and taking that and giving that information to the coaches, to the school admin, to EMTs. How do we handle a heat emergency? Bringing in our case, our EMTs and our fire departments combined. So bringing in our fire department. Would love to have the ER doctors show up so that when we send a kid that has heat related illness, this isn't somebody that was playing in their backyard and just didn't drink enough, right? This is a football player that just spent 3 hours outside and was being monitored and still had a heat illness, like still had heat exhaustion, still had, heat stroke. And how do they manage that versus your standard, just typical patient? And then bringing in the sports medicine doctors and saying, hey, how do we return them back to play? Because they don't just go to the ER, get their fluids, and come back and practice tomorrow, right? And so we need to know, how are we managing that? Because you and I both know, and most athletic trainers know, that you're kind of never the same after you have a severe heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Like, your body doesn't ever recover the same. So those need to be managed for the rest of their sports career, for the rest of their life after athletics. And again, like in our area right now, it's probably just going to be athletic trainers at this event, right? Maybe some coaches are going to come out. We're hoping to get those EMTs out. There's a shortage of EMTs here in El Paso, I'm learning. But even if it's just us athletic trainers, just taking your MSAT students, if they come out, hey, what are we learning, right? I'll have a presentation that we'll do, but it's informal. Somebody can be like, hey, that's not a thing anymore, or hey, here's a better way to do this, and then practicing it, because everybody knows practice makes perfect. We all sit there and be like, we know what to do with heat illness. We know what to do if somebody goes down with sudden cardiac arrest. We know it, but when it happens, are we going to actually act? What is your body going to do when a football player, a volleyball player collapses on the court? And are you going to go into shock? Are you going to immediately go into action? Well, the more you practice it, the more likely you are to just go into, that response mode. It's muscle memory. So that's one of the big things we're hoping to do. I'm still pushing that out, working on that presentation. But I mean, right now we're looking at, just between us, like Socorro ISD should be there. All of their athletic trainers. So that's what, 22, 25 athletic trainers, something like that.
Actually, I think it's less. I think they only have 6 high schools, so you're looking at maybe 24, no 12
Well,
plus
12.
maybe some admin. Yeah,
Well, I was also counting in
yeah,
a couple of the like former AT, like, so like who are now subs or now teachers or things like that.
yeah. I would say probably about 20.
Yeah, that's and then there's other school districts in the area. I don't know how many of them are going to show up. None of them have RSVP'd, but just getting that and then building that up every year. Like, I mean, just making it more people, because it doesn't need to just be athletic trainers. Like, we know this stuff. It's been drilled into our brains every year. We need to teach it to people. Eventually, I'd love to have it as a community event. It's parents come in. This is how we're going to treat your child. This is how you know that your child is going to be okay when they are in our hands.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say I kind of stole this from Daryl Conway in his presentation a little bit. They talk about your level of practice is going to, like, your response is going to fall back to your level of practice, not live up to your expectations. And that really stuck with me. And that's kind of one of the reasons why, my goal for this year in SCATA is that on the professional side, is that push. Like, we need to elevate ourselves because, too many times I'm seeing in the news, like, athletes going down. Like, I've seen a bunch of the rhabdo cases going down. We've had, more people die in recent years. At least that's been more, in the press and the media more, from heat illnesses. And, you know, I know a lot of the older generation of ATs, and again, no shade on their abilities, but they always shy away from when it comes to rectal thermometers. And we need to understand that it's the gold standard, and you can't get sued for practicing gold standards. There is evidence that's almost 20 years old now, I think, that says that this is what you should be doing. And, I know a lot of people are always worried about privacy. It does, if you practice and you do it right, it takes 15 seconds to do that, and you have their pants back up, and boom. If you do it correctly and you practice it, nobody's going to know what's going on. Nobody's going to know what's going to happen. Daryl also said, like, it's not your emergency, right? So if I freak out and if I don't do the stuff that I know I should do, and I'm questioning myself all the time, then I'm going to make it my emergency, and then I'm going to be in trouble, right? So we have to, like you said, practice and just drill it into our heads to where it becomes second nature. We get into that emergency situation and we rise up to the level of our practice that meets our expectations.
Right. And like you said, the caveat, I mean, you said it perfectly. Like, doing rectal temperature is the gold standard. You're not going to get sued for doing what you're supposed to. However, you will get sued for not doing what you were supposed to. So if rectal temperature is the gold standard, or or, like cold tub immersion is the best standard, and you don't do those, then you're going to be sued because you didn't do it, because that's what you're supposed to do. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
a parent can get mad all they want because you did rectal temperature, but no attorney in the world is going to go and say, hey, yeah, you should sue this school district or you should sue this athletic trainer because they did it, because that is what you are supposed to do. You can get mad, it may suck. Sorry, I saved your kid's life. And I think, especially here in this area, with all the different school districts, I think admins here and older athletic trainers need to realize that just because you don't want to do it and you don't feel comfortable with it is not an excuse to not do it. Make yourself comfortable. Practice. I mean, they have those dummies. The more you practice, the less awkward it becomes.
Yeah.
People used to didn't want to do CPR on women because of our anatomy, right? And now that's not a thing anymore. They have the CPR mannequins, so you can practice that. And we don't that's like, as athletic trainers, that's not one of our excuses not to do CPR anymore, right? Even like sutures used to be a thing, right? Now it's not like the gold standard, but I mean, if you know how to do it, those people practice it, and that's how they became better at it, and they became used to it, and it doesn't freak them out anymore, right? So I think us as a SCATA board, we need to say, hey, we're not suggesting this anymore, especially to those admin levels, like the school districts and athletic departments. We're not suggesting it anymore. We're now informing you that you have to do it, or there will be repercussions from it. We're not going to
Yeah.
be the ones doing you, but somebody will be, or the UIL is going to come down and say, hey, you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, and you're right. It's educating, it's getting them comfortable with, I always tell the students it's okay to be uncomfortable. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And getting our new grads to understand that and continue to learn and to approach it from an evidence-based side of it and looking at the data, because again, what we talked about this earlier, data drives dollars. If you have the data, if you have the evidence, you don't have to worry about the potential repercussions, because you're going to be covered, whether it's a Good Samaritan law, your state practice act, whatever it might be. You're covered because you are doing gold standard. And we should never withhold, in my opinion, we should never withhold gold standard practice or gold standard medicine or medical training or whatever to our patients just because we feel uncomfortable, or we might have the perceptions of it being uncomfortable from somebody else.
Yeah, 1000% agree with everything like that, and hopefully as the year goes through and we start doing this, people will understand that not just here in the El Paso area, but across the nation. Hopefully, enough social media advocacy, if I can push it near National Athletic Training Month,
Yeah.
people will get that. So taking that event, so again, that's going to be July 9th for us in El Paso. We're going to host that at Irvin High School, so your wife's high school. Hopefully she has a partner by then. But also we're going to have the big welcome back party. So we do a lot of social stuff. No education involved. It's just a big get together, hang out, gripe about our jobs, like, or not talk about the jobs at all. We have several of those. I think we had like 4 or 5 last year. We had 2 at Top Golf. Well, I guess, yeah, no, it was a social
Yeah.
because we had a social there, and then we had NATA month there. We had the Chihuahuas game, which is new this year that we had. We had the welcome back party, so that's 4. Do we have other like strictly social?
No, we try to, and like my vision as the president is to try to do at least 1, maybe 2 social-ish events a semester. I love our Top Golf NATA month one. I think that one and the Chihuahuas event, those are great ones in the spring. Fall's a little bit more challenging, as we know. We have football. A lot of our membership is the high school ATs, so it's a little bit more challenging for them. So we usually do the welcome back party, but if some of our team physicians or doctors that we work with a lot, shout out to Dr. Natividad for hosting it last year, doing one of the events at Top Golf with him. Those are always fun things to do, especially when we bring in like the doctors that do so much for us in the athletic training realm. So yeah, we try to do at least 3, hopefully sometimes 4 social events on the professional side.
Okay, so we have the big event, the educational event that we're doing. We have the CEUs. Then I'm going to throw training under like both that educational one, but then we also have the big symposium that we do every year, which seems to be our biggest turnout. I mean, CEUs, obviously, but that seems to be getting better. It's not just the same old people talking anymore. Like this, I think everybody enjoyed this last symposium. I think it had great topics and topics that weren't just geared towards the high school athletic trainers, which I think has been why we couldn't get other settings to show up before. So like next year, we're trying to work on this year getting the BOC, so we can hopefully get BOC CEUs, which would help out a lot with speakers. But then like haven't we been talking about doing like how we always have the concussion every 2 years? So in Texas, you have to have your concussion training every 2 years when you re-up for your license, right? But haven't we been talking like switching that out and having like certain like things that we're gonna cover, like this year's concussion, this next year's emergency, like things that we're gonna, I guess, elevate the profession with, but have it so we know we're gonna get those.
Yeah, I would say, with overall goal, I always like to call myself the dreamer here. Taking this heat illness one, and that's going to be, this is what, 2025. So that would be like our odd year one. And then we replace that with the concussion one the following year. So then every other year, you're getting heat illness in the odd years, you're getting the concussion in the even years. And then we can pull that out. We can pull it off of the symposium. And then that opens up some of the doors for some potential different things that we can do. Our vice president is one that really is heavily involved with the symposium, and him and I have been toying around with ideas about bringing in a certification to piggyback off of our symposium. So if we could potentially pull the concussion recert or update out of that gives us some more time to really draw in the rest of the profession. And that's kind of the other direction that I want to take SCATA is we have to get away. It's Sun City Athletic Trainers Association, so that tells me it's all ATs, not just secondary ATs. So we really need to push things that are important to all of the athletic trainers in the area, not just what the high school ATs deem important.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I knew how hard it was to get military athletic trainers to show up, and there was almost, I don't know if you count the ones who were dual credit. They're probably like at any point 30 on post, maybe more, maybe less, but I was pretty much the only one that showed up because a lot of it wasn't geared towards military athletic trainers or UTEP or, NMSU even, or, EPCC. Like, yeah, they can take it and they can use it, but how are they going to use it? Like, how is a UTEP going to learn about building a secondary program, right? Like, that's neat. But dry needling would be a cool one, or CES or FMS would be like a cool one that we could all use. That'd be nice, and maybe we could get more people to show up. transitioning from the professional side to the student side. So that's one big thing that I think SCATA does really well compared to a lot of local associations is the students. And I think all the associations in Texas do it because we have the state competition. But what are some things that like we're hoping to do next year? Because I know we're changing some things in the student side. So what are some things that we're going to do next year? What is the student side of SCATA going to look like in 25, 26?
Yeah, so our new goals is, again, going on with our overall goal is just increasing awareness of the profession. So part of that is investing in the students. So upcoming for this year, right, we're still looking at our annual workshop. Usually that's in the fall, usually the week before Thanksgiving, because that seems to be, since a lot of the times it's mostly high school students that attend, it seems to be the time when most of the high school ATs are able to bring their students. Goal for that one this year, though, with our MSAT now in full flow now, full function here, is elevating that to now it's not just high school students, it's meaningful for the college students too. So getting them involved in some capacity now, whether that might be they become some of the speakers or we have some more targeted things for them that might be a little bit more elevated. It gives a chance for some of our speakers who have maybe aspirations to want to speak at bigger conferences, they can now really start to practice and elevate their presentations as well. So that's that's our big one in the fall. And then when we shift gears into the spring, starting in January, we have our annual competition, our student competition, and new this year is going to be the Olympics. So we're going to combine both events together because I've seen several other associations across the state, they like to do them together. So I was like, hey, you know what, instead of stressing ourselves out, let's conform with the rest of the state. So, and get it set up similar to the state competition. State competition does it all together, so why shouldn't we do the same thing? So we're going to do that this year. We're going to kind of keep similar style. However, we do have some new wrinkles that are going to come out for the competition. I'll save that for later to build some suspense, but we have some new wrinkles for the students that I think will be really beneficial, and I think that they'll like it. Idea is just to keep things fresh and new. I'm big at not trying to become stale because I really like investing in our students' futures. So keeping it meaningful and fun for them, I think, is wildly important. And I say this to all of the high school ATs, like, hey, you rely on these students to do a lot for you. It's the least you could do to give up 2 or 3 days or evenings a year to do something fun with them, right? Like our workshop is a fun event. It's not just where we're in school for another 3 hours, after. It's as much social, hands-on, and fun. It's things that we try to do that's fun for them. Same with the competition, right? You don't have to have any formal training or classroom time with them, right? A lot of the stuff that we do is things that they hopefully are picking up from you if they're spending some time with you as a student aide. So doing stuff for them is wildly important to me. So I like to give these options to them. And then moving into March, we have one of our other board members who is going to take this on. He was our former student association president way back when, but he is going to bring back our NATA month panel for the students, and he's going to be inviting a bunch of ATs from across the country in different settings to kind of just talk a little bit about their career, their journey into AT, just to, again, to show the kids there's something else outside of El Paso or this area. And that's big for me. Like, I would love every student to come to NMSU. Don't get me wrong. I would love all of them to be up there, but I also understand that, students want to get away. 100% respect that. Scholarships are a big thing. I am never one to tell you to turn down free money. So, just opening up these opportunities, and I'm sure you know this and a lot of other people know this, your network is huge. So a lot of times for jobs, it's who you know and then what you know keeps the job. So, this is a way to help them network that way.
Yeah. One thing I do want to add, because I'm pretty sure if I can't say this, I'll edit it out later. But we're going to, one thing that makes us unique from the other Texas associations, so GHATs in Greater Houston area and your NTATs in North Texas, is that we are on the border, so we're internationally, so Mexico and US, right? And then we're also on the state line with New Mexico, which is a whole different district. So one thing we're going to hopefully do in that student competition is have a New Mexico division, hopefully, and a Texas division. Because we know as SCATA, there's always one New Mexico school that just blows the water out of everybody. And people are always like, oh, that's not fair. I mean, we still have a Texas winner. They don't go to our Texas state competition. We still have a first, second, and third for our Texas teams. But I kind of like it because it's like, hey, that's what you need to achieve. Like you see that students, and we've heard it, being in, the kids are like, man, that one school, like they know their stuff. I want to be like them. And we've seen those kids the next year come back and they're like, we're gonna beat that school. We studied to beat that school. And I mean, this year we had one. We had a school that moved up, was lower last year. Now they moved up in our Texas rankings, right? And then we had a whole brand new school that has just really started to come into it this year, and most of the kids are like, yeah, we heard about that school. we came to beat them, right? So it'd be nice to say, hey, like we have a Texas division and a New Mexico division, and these Texas teams beat the New Mexico state champs, or the New Mexico state champs beat the Texas champs. Like that's bragging rights that a lot of those other associations don't have. Houston can't say, "Oh, we beat the Louisiana state champs," or NSATs can't say, "Oh, the Oklahoma state champ," like because we don't have a national version of sports medicine. Although that'd be really cool. So that's something else that we're going to do for them. So hopefully we can get some more New Mexico, especially Southern New Mexico schools to come down and participate and get more students and just see the differences. I mean, we know Texas high school is a lot different than New Mexico high school. El Paso is a lot different than rural Southern New Mexico. And so it would be nice for those kids to see the differences in that. We've already talked about partnerships. We've already talked about, again, the college kids coming in. Any future plans, maybe not this year, but like maybe in the next 5-10 years, whether we're on the board or not. But is there anything like you want to really see that you haven't already touched on from the SCATA and from the greater El Paso area?
Yeah, I working on this again. I put on my two hats here with NMSU and SCATA. Here is increasing the collaboration between the SCATA Association and the colleges, right? Because again, we want to invest in our students, invest in their future. So really, pushing that partnership with UTEP, with EPCC, with DACC, with NMSU, like kind of our local schools, as far out to Sul Ross and UTPB, like just getting this wide network so we can really help elevate the profession, help some of our community partners. Like again, I'll just use Sul Ross for an example. Like let's say they have an opening, and they have that partnership with us, we can really try to help steer applicants their way to, give them some benefit. Some of the high schools that are, in the middle of nowhere, I wouldn't say like Fort Stockton's in the middle of nowhere, but, places like Fort Stockton or Van Horn or Pecos, things like that, right? Getting them, applicants to help fill their jobs so those students have access to an athletic trainer. That's kind of one of the big overachieving goals I would like to see the association move to, is to build those partnerships with the college, make pathways, make pipelines, things of that nature. Another one that I'm trying to implement sooner, because I've seen this done in other associations across the state, is kind of reorganize our scholarship format to give out one collegiate scholarship to a student that is going into or currently in an MSAT. So that one would again be a specific scholarship given to a specific individual that has proof of enrollment in an MSAT or is already enrolled currently in an MSAT. And it doesn't have to be an MSU, right? It can be Texas Tech, it can be NAU, it can be UNM, even though that might hurt my heart a little bit if they go up to Albuquerque, but it doesn't have to be an MSU. I would like that to see given to an El Paso, Las Cruces area kid that is going to an MSAT program. And I think that's very powerful to get the college kids more invested as well, because they're going to start doing more stuff. We already have the student symposium that our students do, right? And the MSAT kids are responsible for putting that on. So, to increase buy-in from them, how do we do that? Maybe we can throw them a small scholarship. We already give out 3, I think, high school scholarships. I can easily see us, maybe doing 2 and 1, again, to just, like I said, I want to invest in our future students. I want to invest in the future of the profession. How do we do that? We help kids get into the profession.
Right.
So those would be.
Maybe that brings in so when we have our symposium, the only colleges we only have 2 colleges that show up, right? And so we have Eastern Arizona and we have you guys at NMSU. So maybe that would help be able to bring somebody down from Texas Tech. Again, no, it hurts you guys and it suffers. But for those of you that are listening or watching, don't realize how many high schools are in the El Paso area. I mean, EPISD alone has 11 high schools that have like athletic trainers and sports medicine programs, and then you have Isleta ISD that's 8, 9, something like that. Socorro 6. Now we have Canatillo, we have Anthony, we have all the county schools, so like Fabin, St. Elie, Clint, the Horizons. So in our general greater El Paso area, not counting the New Mexico side, we're what, 45, 50 schools that probably have
Yeah, I think
maybe four?
last count was about close to 40, and then, you bring in the Cruces schools, there's 4 of them, then you bring in the Gadsden schools, there's 3 of them, SCATA's starting to reach Deming, so you bring in the Deming high schools and Alamogordo. A lot of these southern New Mexico schools are starting to, reach out and, inquire or like ask ways to participate. So you're starting to see that. So yeah, we're probably as an association servicing or not servicing, but advocating for, I should say, probably close to 50 to 60 high schools. And, just giving these kids those options, like, hey, you want to be an athletic trainer? You're from this area, you can apply for this scholarship, and that might help, offset some costs. I know it's not going to cover entire, years of grad school, but it might offset textbook costs, or it might offset your gas money or travel expenses that you accrued for that semester. So that's one of the big ones I would like to see us work towards this year as something to look forward to.
I'm excited. I think that'd be really cool. Coming from used to be part of NTATs, like that was something you did. We gave away the college ones, and then we gave away the high school ones, and then it also, hey, you won this scholarship, why don't you apply for the SWATA one? Why don't you, as a college student, why don't you apply for that SWATA? Why don't you apply for the TSATA ones? Why don't you apply for NATA ones even? I think they still do them. And so
Oh yeah.
that would be really helpful. I mean, like, obviously we all know the more scholarships you get, the cheaper college is, the less student
Yeah.
loans you
I
have.
want to say I just got word of one. I think the NBA is partnering with NATA Foundation, and it's a renewable $10,000 a year scholarship
There we
for
go.
I think a handful. I forget how many they said. They said depends on how many students apply, but for our El Paso area kids in southern New Mexico, like if you're going into an MSAT, like apply for that. Like you get that scholarship that covers tuition, at least half your tuition for 1 year in certain colleges, right? And it depends on where you go, right? In state versus out of state tuition, all that stuff, but still getting $10,000 a year renewable, like that's huge for some people. And that's what some people don't know. I mean, yes, you have to be a student NATA member for those, but that's also why I push the student membership for NATA, is because of the scholarships. Like you find the scholarships that you look for, and that's one area to do.
That's their equivalent as us in the NATA for CEUs. I got
Yeah,
on
pretty much.
new CEUs. So I think that's everything that I have down here. Is there anything on any topic or any other topic we didn't discuss that you want to say? Anything you want to push out there to anybody listening?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, come down to MSU. We rock.
But I mean, coming off of that, like we said it a lot, but like we want to make El Paso like a great hub for athletic training. But what people really don't realize is we already are. Um, El Paso is a lot bigger than people think we are because we are one of the bigger cities in our area. There's nothing really close to us. But before the H2F thing, like we had probably something for every setting. A lot of cities can't say that. Obviously, you have your traditional settings, right? Then we had military, we have the clinical, we have industrial, we have the academic side of it, different levels. We also have international. So there are like maybe not strictly athletic trainers, maybe they're like physiotherapists or the equivalent, but we have Juarez, which has the professionals teams on their end. We have professional baseball here. So you have the AAA for the San Diego Padres, the Chihuahuas that play here. And then we can also push out to like the Rhinos, and we have the locomotives and all that kind of stuff. But then we had the military, not just Army. We had Air Force up in Alamogordo, the Las Cruces, like the White Sands area. We have rodeo that comes through here that has athletic trainers. We have performing arts that come through here. I know like 2 years ago, Hamilton came through and they had an athletic trainer that traveled with them. Last night was Coldplay concert and they have an athletic trainer that travels with them, which I did not know, and I thought that was really cool. So things like that rotate through our area. So there's something for every setting here. A lot of big cities can't, especially cities our size that aren't the New York cities, that aren't the LAs, that aren't the Houston, Chicago's, from the mid-sized cities that can say we have an MSATs program nearby. So I think people, not just in El Paso, yes, advocate for us, but like those of you that aren't in the Texas area, just know like this is the place to send your kids. It's very family friendly here in El Paso, having moved here. Like, all the people here are very nice. It's one of the safest cities. Just putting that out there for people that, struggle to send their kids off to college. Maybe, send them to UTEP, send them to MSU. Like, some legends have come through this area. Like, everybody knows Dawn Hearn. Like, she's the epitome of being a female in a male sport, right? So just trying to push that out to everybody that El Paso, we're hoping in the next couple years, is the new spot for athletic trainers. So when you see us posting on social media, that's why.
Yeah, 100%. I that is the pitch on how I promote our clinical education is, right? We have just about every single setting that you can imagine, right? Like NMSU has their own rodeo team, but we have rodeo is like one of our clinical sites. We send kids out to physical therapy clinics that work with an AT that is an ATPT. So they have that side, right? We have the orthopedics. We have a lot of the specialists with like the neurosurgeons, and we have the oncologists. We have all the specialists of the doctors, several different levels of sports, right? Semi-pro, with the locomotives. Fun fact, we have one of our students is now, who just graduated, is now employed by the locomotives. She is the AT for the U20 team. So she handles all of their feeder, I guess, is kind of how she described it. I probably misunderstood that, but you're right. El Paso, Las Cruces area, this has all the settings that you want. And I feel with some of the individuals that are involved in SCATA and some of the individuals that are involved in the various AT programs, they have a lot of knowledge that they want to share with people. They have a lot of drive to make things better. So I would say, yes, that's one of my overarching goals, is to make this a hotspot where people are like, yes, if I want to be a great athletic trainer, I should spend some time down here, maybe go to school, maybe do an immersion internship, whatever it might be.
Oh, I mean, that is a great way to end this podcast, talking about both NMSU, the MSAT programs, and our SCATA programs. So real quick, just to end it out, I want to thank you, Ben, for coming on our show. I think we had a lot of fun. I know especially the comic book and the Avengers talk was great. And then I'm hoping that our listeners and the people that are watching this right now were able to get some good advice, maybe better understandings of the MSAT programs, maybe even learning about advocacy so they can take what we talked about at SCATA and take it to their local communities, their local associations, and just overall, we said it a bunch, but just advocate for ourselves and level up our profession. So for those listening and those that are on the live versions right now, if you'd like to get in on our action, maybe be a part of the show, you can follow us again on all our social medias. We're on X, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, you name a social media site, we're there, right? Participate in any of our polls, our questions, the challenges that are on all of our social media. And then if there's something you want us to talk about, or you want me to bring in a guest, or you maybe want to join the show yourself, tag us in anything AT Twitter with those topics, those hot ideas, those hot takes, and we'll look into it and maybe we'll have you on the show. We're always looking for guests to join. Lastly, just to keep this show going. So again, it's been 3 years almost since I've done this show. So I gotta bring that viewership up, man. I need people to spread the word. Leave a review on whatever service you're listening to us on, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, or if you're just listening to us anywhere on the internet. Share and retweet all our social media posts. That's how I get the word out about upcoming shows, times, dates, things like that. And then just tell everyone you know to download and listen. The more downloads we get, the more listens we get, the more money we can bring in to maybe get some bigger speakers on. Especially their next episode is going to be on H2F and the Army cuts. And I would love to have somebody who's more involved on the Army side of it versus the athletic training side. And that's where that money would come in and help. So thanks for listening today, for those of you on the lives right now, or if you're listening to this in about 2 weeks on the audio version, thank you for downloading and listening. And just remember that everything here it's debatable.